Good morning and welcome to our last pathway session of the week with our um, fabulous Joette Hours, who's going to talk about being an undecided student. And at the very end of the session today, I will put up a page for a link that you can enter to win some prizes on Monday. You have to get it in this weekend because we will be doing the drawing for the AirPods, the iPad mini, and the Nintendo Switch on Monday, which is the first day of classes. So make sure that you get your entry in before then. If you'd like to go back and watch any of the recordings from this week, you can get entries for those as well. New students can get up to 5 entries into that drawing. So if you go to lfcc.edu/welcome day, you'll be able to see an entire lineup of everything that we've done this week. And you can review all their panel sessions, pathway sessions, some resource chats about online learning. There's a ton of information out there that we're trying to give you before you start classes so that you can be successful. So I will be monitoring the chat this morning, and if you have any questions for Joette as we go along, I'll make sure to stop her and ask the question for you. Okay, without further ado, Joette.
All right, I'm going to need to share my screen. So we're going to cover things to think about as far as degrees and careers, being an undecided student. So a couple of things to think about to get started. And those are, what are you interested in? What is something you really love to do? What are you passionate about? What is your dream job? And then what are your future academic and professional goals? So with something that you're interested in or that you really love to do, consider some of the following things. So if you love writing, then maybe an English major is what you're looking at. That way you can look at pursuing careers like journalism, publishing, editing, or if you really like numbers, you can consider majors like math, economics, engineering, physics, any of those calculation-heavy disciplines. If you're interested in becoming a lawyer, you can look at majors like political science, English, history, economics, philosophy. Or if you're interested in something like pre-med, majors like biology, chemistry, physics, or even liberal arts can work for you. It really does depend on the institution that you're planning to go to for medical school. So these are just some of the things that you can consider when looking at, what it is exactly that you want to do, that you really like to do, that you're interested in doing. I will say that if you've already been to a advising session, you would have received some information with links to some of our career-related information where you can go to the Virginia Wizard and look at different programs of study, the Occupational Outlook Handbook, where you can look at if you're really interested in a position. Let's say you want to be a pilot, you can type that into as a keyword search, and it's going to tell you what kind of training or education you need in order to go into that field of study. So those are some of the things that you can consider for that. Now, what are you passionate about? Here's where you really start to look at networking with the people you know. So talk to your family, to your friends, family. Get connected to those people that are in your network who could be mentors. So a consideration, maybe you're thinking of being an attorney and your parents know somebody who's an attorney and they can get you connected with that person, and you can sit down and you can have conversations with them so that you can find out, how long did it take them to go through school? How did they get their job? How long did that take? How did they get started? How much money can they make? Those sorts of questions to find out if that direction is something that really is what you're passionate about and you're looking at going into that area. You can always look to see if you can job shadow somebody just to see what they do on a daily basis, to see if that is something you want to do for the rest of your life. These are ways that you can look at what it is that you want to study, what direction you want to go in. Another thing I will say is that don't underestimate if you have a passion for writing, but then you also have a passion for numbers. You really like math. Look at both directions. Don't think that you have to go in one direction just because you're really good at that direction. Even though you're really good at something and something is your passion, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue working in that particular direction. So here, what is your dream job? So if you're looking at maybe being a doctor or a surgeon, a couple of things to be mindful of when you're considering a pathway in order to go in. One, you're looking at 4 years of undergraduate study, 4 years of medical school, and 3 to 8 years of residency or surgical residency at a hospital. So consider the length of time it's going to take you in order to get to your end goal. Also consider, do you like anatomy, microbiology, biochemistry, physiology, pathology, psychology, ethics, medical law? Those are all courses in which you're going to have to take and know in order to be a doctor or a surgeon. Also consider that your skills in a particular subject should not necessarily be the main determining factor on whether you pursue a major in that field. It's just a relevant piece of information to consider while you're making your decision. Another thing to consider is that you may love history, but do you really want to study it? Do you want to work in that field? Or are you instead interested in being the doctor so that you can use your love of history for your vacations, to take adventures, to do in your spare time, so that you keep it a passion and something that is interesting for you. So just again, because you like something doesn't necessarily mean that that's the area in which you should work in. Lastly, of the questions to consider, what are your future academic and professional goals? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Or what about 10 years? Being unsure about the exact profession that you want to pursue is fine, but you usually have some kind of an idea about what it is that you're interested in doing. Most people have more than one interest, which is why you should consider all of those interests when you're looking at majoring in a specific degree program or going into a specific career direction. Now, within Lord Fairfax, a couple of things to note. We have certificate programs and we have 2-year associate's degrees. Then once you leave us, you can go on to a 4-year institution where you can get your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, or even your doctorate degree. So here are a few things to consider with those. A certificate program can get you specialty jobs, something like a CNA or a mechanic or electrician, HVAC professional, a paramedic. A 2-year associate's degree is going to get you an entry-level position in the subject that you studied, or it's going to give you the first 2 years of a transfer degree in order to go on to a bachelor's program. A bachelor's degree is the average requirement for most positions in the workforce. That is on average, but that is not necessarily in order to get a really good job that pays you well that you have to have a bachelor's degree. So just keep that in mind. Master's degrees are rapidly becoming the expected level of education for most jobs, especially if you really want to make money. But again, I will still throw out there that depending on what it is that you want to do, you don't necessarily need to have a master's degree in order to make a good deal of money. Doctorate degrees are the highest specialty level of learning. Those are the degrees to become a medical doctor, to be a lawyer. That's what you're looking at. So it's your master's plus at least 2 years, but depending on, again, what direction you're going in, it could be 4 or more years. Now, here's where I kind of take it in a different direction so that you can see some of the projected industry employment. So this was a chart from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing from 2016 to 2026. And you can see that healthcare fields, social assistance have the highest growth. Manufacturing has the lowest growth. And all the other areas in between will show you kind of how they're building. One thing to keep in mind, especially with the healthcare fields, this will show you some information, again, from Bureau of Labor Statistics. Community and social service occupations include social workers, counselors, religious workers. So keep that in mind. But another thing to consider is if you want to be an athletic trainer, that is normally a bachelor's degree level. And in 2018, the median pay for that was $47,000. However, if you want to be an EMT or a paramedic, that is considered a post-secondary non-degree award, which means you've graduated from high school and you've received some training and certifications. So not necessarily an associate's degree. You may not necessarily even have to attend a college at all in order to get that training. And the median pay for EMTs and paramedics was $34,000. So keep in mind that you don't have to go through extensive college in order to get the job you're looking for and also to make a fairly decent wage. But fairly decent wage is dependent on what you consider a fairly decent wage as well. It also is dependent on where you live. A couple of the other ones, you can be a dental hygienist with an associate's degree. To be a school or career counselor, you're going to need a master's degree. But also, if you just want to be a social or human services assistant, all that really requires is a high school diploma, and you could possibly, with a median pay, make $33,000 a year. So these are just some things to consider when you're looking at what direction it is that you want to go in, what you want to do with your life. A couple of other things to consider. A lot of people seem to think that they should choose an occupation that is in demand. Just because an occupation is in demand right now does not necessarily mean that that same occupation will be in demand when you're done with your education, depending on how much education you're looking at getting. The job market fluctuates constantly. There are jobs that you could be studying for that have not actually been introduced into employment yet. So keep in mind that you may end up studying something and have the knowledge and skills to work a particular position that hasn't been developed yet. Another myth is I should choose an occupation based on my strongest skills. The fact is, it's risky to consider only your existing and strongest skills for a career decision, because skills are only one of the components of a full self-evaluation. One thing to consider, and one of the most important things to consider when you're looking at what it is that you want to do, being an undecided student, is where your soft skills lie. And those are things that cannot necessarily be taught in a classroom. Those are things that you're going to learn by doing. Now, there are some like communication skills, like your oral communication skills, your written communication skills. which are going to be honed a little bit in a classroom as far as a public speaking class or your college composition courses. But also consider how well you are as a speaker, regardless of a communications class, a public speaking class. Another thing to consider is teamwork, how well you work within a team, within a group setting. If you have a part-time job, or if you've worked in a group when you were in high school, how effective were you at working within that group to get a particular task accomplished? Consider your attitude. Do you usually have a positive attitude? Are you fairly self-confident? Do you have the ability to accept and learn from criticism? These are all soft skills. Adaptability is a soft skill. If you're adaptable and flexible and you can kind of roll with the punches, if you're in a position that someone says, all right, I need you to stop doing this and I need you to start doing this and we got to do it now and here's what we need to do. Can you roll with it? Are you flexible? Consider your problem-solving skills. Do you use both analytical and creative thinking in order to come up with a solution? Your creativity, where does that land as far as when you're thinking about innovative solutions to problems at work? Your work ethic. Do you show up to work on time all the time? Do you take days off just because you can? Those are things that when you're looking at employment that employers are going to look for that, again, really cannot be taught in a classroom. Those are things that you have to work on and hone as you grow and learn both in a classroom and outside of a classroom. A couple of other things to consider as far as soft skills are your interpersonal skills, how you interact and communicate with other people, your time management skills, if you have any leadership skills, and then your attention to detail. Soft skills are one of those things that can help you kind of beat the myths about what kind of an occupation you should choose, especially when you're looking at my strongest skill set is this. If your strongest skill set is something like attention to detail or the fact that you are a good team player, those are not necessarily things you're going to learn in a classroom. So again, it's kind of looking at if those are some of your strongest skills versus I'm really good at history and I can tell you all of these historical dates, that you need to consider when looking at a kind of a degree direction or a career pathway. When you're choosing your pathway here at Lord Fairfax, a couple of things to know is that we have broken down our pathways into certain areas. So criminal justice, or business, or computers and IT, education, recreation and wellness, science and agriculture. If you're interested in one of these pathways, as an undecided student, you were most likely put into the general studies curriculum because it is our most broad degree program, and it's a good place to be where you can take an engineering class or a recreation class or an administration of justice class or an IT class and think and decide once you've taken that class whether or not that is something that you want to learn more about, if that's something that you want to go into a little more. Another thing to consider when you're looking at degree pathways is math. There are a lot of people who math is the determining factor as to whether or not they really want to do a particular degree direction. I'm going to use engineering as the example because engineering students are one of the groups of students that I advise on. If you're looking at going to get a bachelor's degree in engineering, you want to study biomedical engineering, you're going to take at least 18 credits worth of math with us alone, and you're going to take high-level math. Calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, so you're going to have to know algebra, geometry, trig. But if you're like, I really want to do engineering, but I don't necessarily want to go on to do a bachelor's program, then you could look at lower levels, pre-calculus instead. So there are ways to do programs where it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be well-versed in mathematics, but mathematics can make a difference for some degree directions. You will see a lot of these degree directions. Statistics is the biggest math class that most students would have to take in order to continue that education, simply because statistics is the math that is used in those areas, especially within education or criminal justice or business, healthcare, those areas. Any particular questions, Michael? All right, here is where I am going to leave you with a little video. I like to show this, and I'm starting it into the video simply because it is a video called "What Do You Want to Be When You Grow Up?" And I think she has a lot of interesting information so that you can consider some other ways of looking at how do you figure out what it is that you want to do, while also considering the fact that you don't necessarily need to have one particular pathway.
There's no sound, Joette. You may have to change your sound settings.
Say that again.
There's no sound.
No sound?
Yeah, you may have to change your sound setting. There's a way to do that.
That work?
No.
You can see but not hear.
Okay, Evan says that when you click to share screen, there's a checkbox at the bottom of the page. So you may have to end your share screen and then go back in. And he said there's a checkbox about, what is it, like audio, background audio or something?
All right, give me a second here.
Sure.
All right, share screen.
There you go.
We first asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, when we're about 5 years old? And the truth is that no one really cares what you say when you're that age. It's considered an innocuous question posed to little kids to elicit cute replies, like, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a ballerina, or I want to be a pirate. Insert Halloween costume here. But this question gets asked of us again and again as we get older in various forms. For instance, high school students might get asked what major they're going to pick in college. And at some point, what do you want to be when you grow up goes from being the cute exercise it once was to the thing that keeps us up at night. Why? See, while this question inspires kids to dream about what they could be, it does not inspire them to dream about all that they could be. In fact, it does just the opposite. Because when someone asks you what you want to be, you can't reply with 20 different things. The well-meaning adult will likely chuckle and be like, oh, how cute, but you can't be a violin maker and a psychologist. You have to choose. This is Dr. Bob Childs. and he's a luthier and a psychotherapist. And this is Amy Ung, a magazine editor turned illustrator, entrepreneur, teacher, and creative director. But most kids don't hear about people like this. All they hear is that they're going to have to choose. But it's more than that. The notion of the narrowly focused life is highly romanticized in our culture. It's this idea of destiny, or the one true calling. The idea that we each have one great thing we are meant to do during our time on this earth, and you need to figure out what that thing is and devote your life to it. But what if you're someone who isn't wired this way? What if there are a lot of different subjects that you're curious about and many different things you want to do? Well, there is no room for someone like you in this framework. And so you might feel alone. You might feel like you don't have a purpose. And you might feel like there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. What you are is a multipotentialite. A multipotentialite is someone with many interests and creative pursuits. It's a mouthful to say. It might help if you break it up into 3 parts: multi-potential and ite. You can also use one of the other terms that connote the same idea, such as the polymath, the Renaissance person. Actually, during the Renaissance period, it was considered the ideal to be well-versed in multiple disciplines. Barbara Scher refers to us as scanners. Use whichever term you like or invent your own. I have to say I find it sort of fitting that as a community we cannot agree on a single identity. It's easy to see your multipotentiality as a limitation or an affliction that you need to overcome. But what I've learned through speaking with people and writing about these ideas on my website is that there are some tremendous strengths to being this way. Here are 3 multipotentialite superpowers. 1, idea synthesis. That is combining 2 or more fields and creating something new at the intersection. Shaw Wong and Rachel Binks drew from their shared interests in cartography, data visualization, travel, mathematics, and design when they founded Meshu. Meshu is a company that creates custom, geographically inspired jewelry. Shaw and Rachel came up with this unique idea, not despite, but because of their eclectic mix of skills and experiences. Innovation happens at the intersections. That's where the new ideas come from. And multipotentialites, with all of their backgrounds, are able to access a lot of these points of intersection. The second multipotentialite superpower is rapid learning. When multipotentialites become interested in something, we go hard. We absorb everything we can get our hands on. We're also used to being beginners because we've been beginners so many times in the past. And this means that we're less afraid of trying new things and stepping out of our comfort zones. What's more, many skills are transferable across disciplines, and we bring everything we've learned to every new area we pursue, so we're rarely starting from scratch. Nora Dunn is a full-time traveler and freelance writer. As a child concert pianist, she honed an incredible ability to develop muscle memory. Now she's the fastest typist she knows. Before becoming a writer, Nora was a financial planner. She had to learn the finer mechanics of sales when she was starting her practice, and this skill now helps her write compelling pitches to editors. It is rarely a waste of time to pursue something you're drawn to, even if you end up quitting. You might apply that knowledge in a different field entirely, in a way that you couldn't have anticipated. The third multipotentialite superpower is adaptability. That is the ability to morph into whatever you need to be in a given situation. Abe Cahuto is sometimes a video director, sometimes a web designer, sometimes a Kickstarter consultant, sometimes a teacher, and sometimes apparently James Bond. He's valuable because he does good work. He's even more valuable because he can take on various roles depending on his client's needs. Fast Company magazine identified adaptability as the single most important skill to develop in order to thrive in the 21st century. The economic world is changing so quickly and unpredictably that it is the individuals and organizations that can pivot in order to meet the needs of the market that are really going to thrive. Idea synthesis, rapid learning, and adaptability. 3 skills that multipotentialites are very adept at, and 3 skills that they might lose if pressured to narrow their focus. As a society, we have a vested interest in encouraging multipotentialites to be themselves. We have a lot of complex, multidimensional problems in the world right now, and we need creative, out-of-the-box thinkers to tackle them. Now, let's say that you are, in your heart, a specialist. You came out of the womb knowing you wanted to be a pediatric neurosurgeon. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with you either. In fact, some of the best teams are comprised of a specialist and multipotentialite paired together. The specialist can dive in deep and implement ideas, while the multipotentialite brings their breadth of knowledge to the project. It's a beautiful partnership. But we should all be designing lives and careers that are aligned with how we're wired. And sadly, multipotentialites are largely being encouraged simply to be more like their specialist peers. So with that said, if there is one thing you take away from this talk, I hope that it is this. Embrace your inner wiring, whatever that may be. If you're a specialist at heart, then by all means specialize. That is where you'll do your best work. But to the multipotentialites in the room, including those of you who may have just realized in the last 12 minutes that you are one, to you I say, embrace your many passions. Follow your curiosity down those rabbit holes. Explore your intersections. Embracing our inner wiring leads to a happier, more authentic life. And perhaps more importantly, multipotentialites. The world needs us. Thank you.
All right, see? This is whole reason I show this is just so that you can simply see that if you've got multiple things that you're interested in, don't shove one aside just because you think you should be doing the other one. I really like the doctor who is also a violinist. He's one of my favorite people ever. With this, ooh, sorry about that. Any questions? Right. Well, that is it for this particular information session. I will say, if you do have questions later, reach out to your advisor, simply because there are other websites, assessments, things that we can give you to look at in order to kind of pick a direction or two that you're interested in, so that you can choose courses that you're interested in that might take you in one path or more than one path. Also keep in mind that sometimes, like the doctor who's also a violinist, I would say most likely that he went to school in order to become a doctor, but he did not go to any kind of a course in order to become a violinist. He may have taken some music lessons, but I would pretty much say he learned that on his own. So just keep those things in mind, that you can have different passions, you can have different directions that you want to go into, that you are by no means stuck going down one particular pathway. Another thing to keep in mind is that even if you do decide that you want to go down this pathway, and then at some point in your life decide that it's the wrong path, I want to go a different direction, you can always make a U-turn. You can always turn left or right. You don't necessarily have to continue down one direction in order to get where you eventually want to be. And that is all from me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joette, for doing that. And I will go ahead and share my screen so that anybody viewing this and Michael can go ahead and enter to win. We will be drawing the names on Monday. So you have until Monday, August 24th to get your entries in. And if you'd like to go back and review anything, like I said earlier in the presentation, it's lfcc.edu/welcome day. And you can see our entire lineup of things that we've done this week. If you want to go back and watch anything from the summer series that we hosted this summer, you can go to lfcc.edu/new student portal, and that will take you to the sessions that we led over the summer that also count toward your entries. All right, I can't believe it's the weekend. It's right before classes start. Welcome, Michael.
Yes.
We're excited to have you with us. I'm sorry we can't be in person this year because normally we have New Student Welcome Day today. And we all hand out swag and we do, a tour around campus and things like that. I did see your name on the curbside list, so you did at least pick up your goodie bag with your cool LFCC mask. Make sure you wash it before you wear it. But I find mine to be very comfortable, actually. So, yeah.
I have to make.
Yeah.
So say I have to make a trip there and get mine. So.
I had entered for another. You can get up to 5 entries, Michael, so don't be shy. Yep, and just select the undecided one. Hopefully it's on there. If it's not, please let me know. But yeah, and then we'll draw, and it'll be in the student email for Campus Live. We'll send that email every Monday with all of our activities and events coming up. And then that will be from engage@lfcc.edu. So Chris sends that once a week. So you'll see who wins on Monday. And then if you did win, he will send you a separate email.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, Michael.
It's not listed. Just pick the one by Margaret Ross. The one, I think it says General Studies. Pick that one instead. It's fine. It'll go in there. I'll remember you. We made that thing like months ago, so everything switched around on us. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and stop the share.